What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Tesla Geek Show. And we are coming to you recording the Tesla earnings call just ended. The Q1 2020 earnings call just ended like 15 minutes ago. And we're coming to you here just short of live to give you our immediate reactions. I'm going to hand it over to Anwar Beck to break down the numbers, and then we will tell you how we feel and give us our reactions.
So a visual representation of what happened is we expected these first quarter 2020 earnings to be on Earth, like what Eli's background shows. But what it ended up is being like a little bit in space, kind of where I am, like halfway to the moon. I mean, it was definitely something really, really positive. So the main thing that people weren't expecting, a lot of the analysts were thinking definitely Tesla isn't going to be profitable this quarter because of illness 19 and being shut down. But what Tesla really surprised a lot of people. The main things that I took away, and I think maybe it'll be better if I share my screen and like go into the earnings slide deck to show you things that stood out to me. But profitability, GAAP net income, they were positive, which was super surprising. And what
they were profitable. And this is in a quarter where, like, the end of the quarter, they didn't get to deliver cars. The factory was shut down. I mean, they were still delivering, but it was far less. Like, there was still disruption in this quarter from COVID-19.
And I think a high-level reason, at least my initial analysis, again, Eli and I are doing this on the fly. The call literally just ended minutes ago. But I was not expecting the kind of gross margins that they were reporting. Like, not only automotive, but total gross margins. It's basically like if you had to dumb it down and just like talk like the simplicity of it is, I think they're much more efficient than what the market was expecting. So the Shanghai Model 3 ramp, I think, is going a lot better than we expected. So those are already reflecting. And Elon
the ramp
mentioned
of the Model Y is profitable already.
That's
and
insane.
And it took them like a year, I think, 9 months to make the Model 3 profitable as they ramped. And they're also talking about lowering the base price of the base Model 3. So we're seeing production efficiencies coming out the nose from Tesla.
And this is where the big win that came in for Tesla is, you guys know about 75% of the Model Y materials are essentially what's in Model 3. So I think that's why Elon, I think, was shocked. He's like, this is the first time a car's come out in the same quarter it's been profitable. Like, that's insane. So that's goes to show that was a good decision by Tesla, basically, to do that. Let me, I'll share my screen with you guys real quick, and we can go to the, hold on one second. So this is the Q1 2020 update. And really the most important things that I'd like to cover in here, the thing that stood out to me, number one, again, is profitability. You can see here 16 million GAAP net income. Non-GAAP was 227 million. Either one of these, people were not expecting to have any kind of positive income.
No profit, I think, this quarter was expected.
Yeah, that was massive, massive. And the thing that really stood out to me, they kind of mentioned it, I think, later on the note, is the gross profits. So if you go in here, the gross profit margin line here, you can see kind of like quarter over quarter, people were expecting this number, this 20.6 gross margin total GAAP, to be like around 15% or something.
And let me give you guys some comparison to like legacy auto. Their GAAP gross margin on automotive is like a couple percent. Tesla's clocking in 20. No big deal. By the way, my t-shirt, "In Musk We Trust."
And then I'll get back to it so we can discuss it. But those are the things that really stood out to me, is the gross margins, total gross margins, and automotive gross margins. I think that was the biggest takeaway for me from the financials. It just goes to show, like, the way I interpret these numbers is Tesla Q, not only did Elon bury Tesla Q last quarter, but now he's like putting the nail in the coffin and just kind of like putting the dirt over it. I mean, it's done. Like, the way these financials look, even in these like crazy circumstances situation, it just makes the company look super solid.
And here's what makes this even more substantial, right? So like Tesla is at like $800 and something a share after hours today. And that would seem pretty crazy for where we're at right now. But part of what's contributing to this is all of the legacy auto manufacturers in the US, GM and Ford, have come out and basically shelved, canceled, and or delayed their EV plans because they can't make profitable EVs, not in the short term. And now that the economy has been utterly obliterated by this unexpected incident, they have to focus on making the only cars that they make a profit, and that's gas cars. And that just further clears the lane for Tesla to be the only real manufacturer making EVs in the entire United States. It's unbelievable.
And the thing that I think even Tesla themselves are kind of surprised by is, you guys all know the first quarter of every year is always kind of like the weakest quarter out of the year.
It is for the whole automotive sector too. Like Q1 is a bad quarter for selling cars. Yeah.
But this was the first time in history that Tesla was gap positive net income, had a positive net income in the first quarter. So huge. And again, you guys remember we lost like a week and a half of production at the end of March. So this would have been even stronger, I feel like, if it wasn't for illness 19. So my main takeaways, dude, like I'll just kind of summarize it, and then maybe you and I can talk about it regarding the financials themselves. And then I actually want to I had a few takeaways from the Q&A session with Elon that I'd love to get your input on as well. So really takeaways that I saw, and again, this is Eli and I just getting this out there as soon as possible. 4 main takeaways in there. They didn't talk about this on the call, but the slide deck had a reaffirmation of guidance. I don't know if you saw that. Did you read, like, towards the end of the slide deck, there was a little thing that said like they mentioned like illness 19 type related shutdowns, but they still, I took it as a reaffirmation, like that 500,000. It seemed like unless like something crazy happens, if Tesla can get back to production sometime in early May and kind of get ramped, that I think that's probably the biggest takeaway, in my opinion, is if they can actually still hit this, even though we just like put the brakes on for.
See, the way I took this the opposite way. I took it as they haven't readjusted their guidance yet, but that's not necessarily reaffirming guidance. And part of it I say that too is I didn't hear anywhere on the call them talk about making promises on number of vehicles delivered in 2020. And it also wasn't core to the questions. Like Adam Jonas and some of the other folks, they were much more interested in saying, hey, what did your cash position look like at the end of April? And like, and nobody's even looking for the whole year yet because everybody's so narrowly focused on getting through this crisis. So like, I didn't take it as that they were committing to making 500 million vehicles this year. I took it as they weren't yet readjusting their projections. And that's not an unfair thing to do because nobody has, like, it's really hard to predict right now what car sales are going to look like in 6 weeks when nobody even knows when the world comes back online. Nobody knows what the world's going to really look like yet. In the words of Elon Musk, give America their freedom again. We have no idea when our freedom's going to come back. So I think I really didn't take it as doubling down on guidance. I took it as they're just not readjusting guidance yet.
Yeah, so the direct line that I was reading in here that I like read into, maybe I'm reading too much into it. At the very end, there's an area on the outlook and volume. It says we have the capacity installed to exceed 500,000 vehicle deliveries this year, despite announced production interruptions. They put that language in there. Like, I don't think that was in the original. That's why I was like, to me, I kind of took it as, I expected them to talk about it if they really reaffirmed it. But then when I saw that last piece, that sentence, I was like, okay, it kind of sounds like they're saying, despite the interruptions that have already happened and what we're planning, we still have, I guess it's also, they use the word capacity. They could produce it. Capacity. They could do it.
They couldn't produce it. The question is, will they sell it? Right. So, yeah, I mean, that is, you're right. That is a new statement, but it does sound very much hedged, which is that, hey, we could still produce 500,000 vehicles even with 6 weeks loss. But I don't think anybody is expecting them still to. And again, not a single analyst. If this was not during COVID, it would have been all about them tracking to meet their expectations. But if this was during COVID, nobody was asking that question.
Yeah, so that was number one takeaway from my side. Number two was the unexpected profitability. And I think that goes hand in hand with number three, which is the better than expected gross margins. To me, like the way I'm reading in it, and Eli, I'd love to get your interpretation. It kind of seemed like a big part of it had to do with just the efficiencies that we're having at like Gigafactory Shanghai, and just like the efficiencies we've built. And they even, I think the CFO mentioned some of this gross margin actually goes to the efficiencies in the Model S and the X, even though they're not selling the volumes that they would like. It's still like you can see, like it's showing in the financials, the efficiency that Tesla's having.
They're improving efficiencies of all their cars, but the one that stood out the most to me is that they're already efficient enough on Model Y that even on this production ramp in the first quarter of deliveries, they're already profitable. That's just mind blowing. That means that,
Yeah.
and there was no production hell this time. And that's what happened. I mean, that's nice, right? Like they got their beatings in Model 3 and they made Model Y that was truly a derivative of the Model 3 with some important engineering improvements like the heat pump and some of these other things and more space. And again, there's all these other engineering improvements they made that has set them up to make the Model Y not only the best car they've ever made, but the most profitable one. And I think truly, like, I can't wait until the economy does recover because I think the Model Y is going to sell millions of units a year once the economy returns to full steam.
Yeah. I'll share my screen a little bit later and show you guys. I had a few pictures of like the difference between Model 3 and Model Y, the amount of parts that were used for certain sections of the car. It's mind blowing. The only way to see it is visually. I'll finish off by the other last statement that I think I was surprised to hear about this was the solar roof production stuff. Elon was saying, like, I mean, if it wasn't for illness 19, like they were about to ramp solar roof production, and because everything shut down, they couldn't get the permitting. But he mentioned something like at peak season this year, we could expect about 1,000 installs a week.
1,000 solar roofs a week from nothing, basically a handful of prototypes to hand-selected people to 1,000 a week. Means they're about to start deploying a whole new level of solar at scale. And when you add that states like California and some of these others having solar on your roof is now a mandated requirement. And if you're building a luxury home, what would you rather have? These ugly ass solar panels on your roof or this beautiful, sexy Tesla solar glass? I'll tell you, I was actually planning on getting a Tesla solar roof, but it took them so long to make it. I actually had to get my roof replaced because it was 30 years old. So I had to buy a whole new roof. At that point, it didn't make sense to buy another roof with Tesla glass, and I just went with solar panels. But if you're building a new luxury home and you know what's up, you're going to get a Tesla solar roof.
Yeah, I was really happy to hear about the solar roof update because Elon's been touting for a couple of years now that one day in like 2025, maybe 5 years from now, that the energy revenues are going to dwarf automotive. So this quarter, I think the total revenues were just shy of 6 billion, and the energy side is only like half a billion or something. Like it's not very much. It's very little, like less than 5%, I think, of total revenues. So I think it's good that they are committing to this. It's always, I felt like because of battery production when they're trying to do the Model 3 ramp, that the solar, the Powerwall batteries required, and even solar roof, it went through multiple iterations, and now it's version 3. I felt like the energy products always took a back seat before. So now I'm happy to see that they're bringing more attention to it. So hopefully that ramp will actually happen over the next several years.
I think it will. It's seen that the solar roof and some of these other things had some engineering complications. It just took way longer than expected. And I think it was something that didn't get a lot of Elon's attention because like autopilot and battery manufacturing and body in white and the paint shop and all those things are more important. Let's talk about something else that he brought up in the call that I think was like pretty easily skipped over. And he said that Battery Day is going to be the greatest moment in Tesla's history. That's effectively what he said. And like, to me, it's not surprising because they promised both the Cybertruck and the Roadster to have 500 plus and 600 plus miles of range. And the only way they can deliver that means that as a result of this acquisition of Maxwell and all the development that they're doing, they're about to release a battery that has like 40% more density and energy per unit of volume than they've ever had before. I mean, like, that's the only way they can deliver on the promises of the vehicles that they've already unveiled and one that you've already won 2 of. So like, I think that's one that we're just kind of sitting back and we've been waiting for years for this to happen. And it sounds like it's going to come up in the next few weeks. And my biggest question is going to be, is it going to be in California? Is it going to be in Texas? How soon do we find out? And how do we be there? Because the Tesla geeks have to be there.
what is the whole? He said it could be either happening in California or Texas. Where I don't. That took me by surprise. I mean, I live in Austin, Texas. I'm like, wait, what? Like,
So
where
I
would they
saw
do an
on
unveil
social
like
media
that?
that people were taking that as Elon confirming the next Gigafactory is going to be in Texas. I don't buy that.
Mm,
Texas does
okay.
have Tesla does have facilities in Texas. They've been secret for a
Hmm.
long time, but you're familiar with them. We've seen the buildings in Austin.
Yeah, yeah,
Like
yeah,
we won't say where they work. So we don't want to put Tesla on blast, but they have a
yeah,
pretty decent engineering department there in
yeah,
Austin. Like it's very clearly that's where it's going to be. I'm sorry, Tesla's new Gigafactory is not going to open in 3 weeks in Austin, even if they were to decide to build it there. They wouldn't be breaking ground in
yeah.
3 weeks. So no, I don't think that it all confirms where the next Gigafactory is going to be. Now, does it seem like it's likely because of other things? Sure, but I don't think
Hmm.
that was confirmation. But I would be interested to. The only reason I think Austin or Texas might be on the table is if California is still in lockdown, then and Texas isn't, then the only place
Oh,
open is Texas. So
that
if
makes sense.
California doesn't allow them to open back up, then they physically can't have it in Texas or in California and bring all these people. All that means for me is I'm going to be flying out to Austin to hang out with you. So I kind of hope it's in Austin,
Yeah,
actually.
that would be awesome, dude. I'll have to tweet at Elon and send out a formal invite. The other, there was a question asked about Gigafactory, and Elon alluded to. He confirmed that the next Gigafactory is in the U.S. We all knew that already, but he gave a timeline. He said it could be in as close as announced in the next month, and then he said up to the next month to 3 months. So he kind of gave himself a window, but it could be by the end of May. We already know what the next Gigafactory is going to be. Is it Giga 5 now? Because Giga Shanghai, I lost count.
I do lose count
Gigafactory
too.
number
Like
one.
because you have Fremont, you have Sparks, Nevada,
Well,
Reno.
Fremont's not a Gigafactory.
Oh,
Like I
it's
think
right.
it's
That's right.
Nevada. We have the Buffalo one. That's number two. Shanghai is three. Berlin is four.
So this will be
So I think
5.
Texas would be five. Yeah. So that was kind of like there's a bunch of little tidbits dropped. So let's maybe just go through a bunch of them,
So
and
let's
you and
even
I can
talk
comment
about the
on it.
conversation he had about timelines. And he said, look, guys, I always live around my promises. I'm not always on time. He said, however, when I do choose time, I choose something that's at the 50% mark, right in the middle of the standard
Yep.
deviation. I'm not choosing the one that has a 90% probability of me being accurate on. I'm choosing the one that I have a 50% probability of being accurate on. That
Mm-hmm.
means half the time I'm going to be right and I'm going to be on time or early, and half the time I'm going to be wrong. That's where I'm
Yeah.
estimating. I'm estimating right in the middle of the probability of where we might fall. So there's a standard
And
deviation around that and when they're going to land. So that means that his timeline on the factory may be between 1 month and 6 months. He's betting between 1 and 3, but that's how he does his timelines. But he did say something important. He's like, look, guys, I always deliver on what it is that I'm promising.
yep, I
Timeline
love when
can
he said
vary.
that.
Let's
Yeah.
be real. That's the way it works in tech. I don't think I have a 10-year career plus in software development. I've never shipped a feature on time, but it always shipped
Mm-hmm.
what it was promised to do. And ultimately, customers were happy.
Were you surprised by the Model S range story that he explained about the EPA? I'd never heard that before.
Yeah.
Elon commented that
Explain
the
to everybody
real
what
or
that was
the
about.
yeah, so the advertised range of a long range Model S right now is 391 miles, right? EPA range. Elon basically alluded to the fact he goes, actually the real range or true range is actually 400 miles. And he gave a little bit of a background story that seemed kind of strange. He said the EPA, when they were the car that they were testing, they left the keys and I think the door kind of open. So overnight, that particular car lost like a couple of percent of battery capacity or power or range. So whenever they tested it, it came up with 391, but he thinks, and I think it's about to be retested, but Elon is almost 100% sure it's going to exceed 400 miles. So we already have a 400-mile range Tesla Model S.
And if Tesla thinks that's the case, that's correct, because like almost always manufacturers submit their expected numbers to the EPA. And usually the EPA testing comes out exactly on point because manufacturers run them through the same tests that the agency does. So if Tesla
Mm-hmm.
believes they have a 400-mile car, something may have gone wrong and it'll get recertified as expected. So like that was interesting insight, by the way, to hear, because like even
Mm-hmm.
391 is absurd. There's nothing else on the market like that. Like people are promising 400-mile range cars that are currently vaporware that are going to
Yeah.
come in 2 or 3 years, maybe, if anybody's even willing to buy it or these companies actually get up to production. And Tesla's basically already there. So let's talk a little bit more.
Yeah.
You were showing me some of the stuff from the earnings call about some of the stuff that Tesla's doing that's not just
Yeah.
vaporware. Do you have those graphics handy so we can show people?
I'll show you real quick. That's what I was like. You guys remember when GM did their battery day or whatever they called it? What do you remember? What that whole?
Oh yeah, they called
It
it,
was
what
like
was it,
a
EV Day?
EV day. It was a
EV
2-hour
Day?
presentation. Yeah,
Yeah.
2-hour presentation. Just like nothing but vaporware
By the way, they just
promises and
announced today
words.
that they've delayed the release of the prototype of the all-electric Hummer.
So I'll share my screen real quick so I can show you guys what I'm talking about here. But on their slide deck, I love this, dude. Like if you scroll down here, Tesla, instead of making promises, I mean, they had all their numbers and everything in here, right? But this part right here, photos and charts, they're like, you want to see Gigafactory Shanghai? Boom. Like a real life photo, right? Here's what's going on. You can see the battery module, the pack factory inside view. Like they're showing that it's all real and here's what's happening. But the thing that I really loved is, and you guys, we've talked about this before on the podcast, and Sandy Monroe right now is tearing down the Model Y. And so you can actually, if you go to Monroe Live on YouTube, you can see everything that we're showing here. But
And if you
this
check out
graphic,
Third Row, they actually had an interview between Elon, Third Row, and Monroe to talk about some of the stuff coming with the Model Y to simplify it even further.
So one of the things that Elon mentioned on the Third Row when he was chatting with Sandy Monroe back and forth is two of the major things, of course, like the big positives coming out of Model Y are the heat pump for efficiency, but also this rear underbody. He said like they made a bunch of changes that basically you can't see, right? Because it's like inside the car. So here's like a really great visual. So the exact same part in essence, doing the same functionality in a Model 3 was pieced together, 70 pieces of metal pieced together, where in the Model Y, it's 2-piece metal. And Elon was commenting that by the end of 2020, this is going to be a single cast, right?
And I remember Monroe's response, which is just, wow.
Mind blown, yeah. And here's another last example that I show here is the underbody, where before you can see in the photo here, like it's basically 70 pieces of metal all like
it
welded
looks
together.
like the assembly of some complicated airplane on the left. Seriously.
Yep. Yeah. And this one is just like rear underbody. It's almost essentially a single piece, like a die cast, right? Like it's crazy.
I love the story how Elon talked about how he got to that as he looked at the die cast Model S sitting there on his desk. And he was like, well, if we can cast a model out of this, why can't we cast a whole car? And basically they've bought literally the biggest casting machine in the world that had to be shipped from like Singapore and Italy and crazy stuff. Literally, they have the biggest casting machine in the world just to make this one part.
And there were the other big topic that was discussed kind of in Elon's highlight had to do around FSD. Maybe you can shed some light because I know I think you already have it on your vehicle, but the traffic light and stop light inner city FSD and Elon mentioned how did you catch that part where he was talking about how Google searches, in essence, the neural net at Tesla, same thing as a Google search. We're just improving it over time as people use it.
He basically explained that the huge advantage that those of us who follow Tesla really understand is that's the advantage of data and users. And he's basically like, every time somebody searches in Google, the Google algorithm has one more opportunity to learn. That's the same case with Tesla. And they're like, look, we have 1 million vehicles that we're giving access to the street level autopilot thing. And I forget, it's basically full self-driving capability. And it's where people go through intersections and they have the autopilot is looking at intersections and it is responding. So it sees a red light or yellow light and it comes to a stop. If it sees a green light, it gives you the ability to confirm so it can go through. And as a result, while it's learning, it is basically getting to see practically every intersection in the United States and getting a full wide breadth of what it's dealing with. And they're like, look, this is capability that's going to lead to being able to do that sometime this year and you not even having to confirm what the car is seeing with the autopilot stick. The same way Navigate on Autopilot started out with us having to tap the autopilot stick to change lanes to now that it doesn't. We're talking about the same thing coming this year with intersections. But one of the things that he said that was interesting too, he said, look, we actually can do all of this and more already. We're just not releasing it because we want it to work at a high enough confidence interval that we feel good about putting it out and being sure that the net effect for all of our users is more safety. So he's like, look, we can already even do more than what we've shown you, but we are only doing it in a way that we are 100% sure is going to be net safe. So he's very bullish on them finishing full self-driving complete by end of the year. And again, the regulatory piece is a little bit unknown, but the other one too is that we're within a year time window on them releasing the Tesla kind of Uber service app.
Yeah.
And that's a big deal.
I'll finish up the actual statement that he said is home to office driving by the end of 2020. And Elon shed some light on the alpha version that he's driving. I guess he's testing out whatever that version is that he's talking about. And he's like, dude, it can do this already. So he's not just speaking vaporware, like he's actually in a car that has that alpha version. He's testing it. And I'm assuming it's like somewhat functional for him to make a statement like that.
Yeah, the alpha version has been able to do some of these things for a while. It's just a confidence interval at which it can do it, right? The confidence interval has to be very high before they hand it to consumers and allow it to enter the media. But no, it's exciting. And again, like this makes a ton of sense. They're going to capture a ton of data. The neural net's going to improve. They're going to do a redeployment out. And it's going to be the same gradual progression we saw with autopilot on freeways. I went from autopilot to navigate on autopilot with stick confirmation all the way to the point where it's doing from on-ramp to off-ramp. And pretty soon it's going to do from home to office. And the key point about home to office is level 4 autonomy. Level 5 autonomy is a crazy pipe dream because level 5 means there's no situation where you'd ever need human intervention. Level 4 basically says any normal road this thing can handle. But if you want to go drive down dirt streets or places like that this is just wild and out of bounds situations, it's not going to work. But that's okay because most of us are just driving from our home to our office. So when we can go from our home to our office without intervention, that's amazing. Then we sit back and wait for legislators to approve it. And then we can go from our homes to our bars and not have to worry about driving. I can't wait for that day to come.
It's going to be epic.
My car's got the 3.0 computer delivered. That's one of the reasons why I upgraded to that Raven P100D because I didn't want to wait a year to get my software chip upgraded. So when that does happen, I will be one of the first people putting out videos because one of the awesome things about having a new car, it's just seemed to work out, is I get these updates like right away. Usually within the first couple of hours of them releasing them, I usually end up having them.
That's awesome, dude. So finally, the other thing that I thought was kind of interesting is when they discussed the commercial HVAC market. Did you catch that piece of the talk?
He did. Yeah, he brought it up because that was something he referenced his tweets about it.
Mm-hmm. So he did reiterate. He's like, dude, it would be. It definitely is like at this point. He's like, we're way too busy. What was that thing he made a joke about? We have too much on our minds and like on our plates at this point. But he did say, hey, dude, Tesla could build a kick-ass HVAC system. I mean, according to Elon, the Model S and X, I think, has like the best like hospital-grade HEPA filter. I mean, you've seen like how big this HEPA filter is, right, in the Model S
Yeah,
and
I've
X?
actually taken mine out of the car before in my old car because I was cutting weight to improve drag strip time. The filter is huge. And I hear people complain who have Model 3 and Model Y, they don't have it. They don't understand that the size of the filter is bigger than the space in the front of the 3 and Y. It is huge. It goes across the entire front of the Model S. It is a massive filter.
I mean, especially during these crazy times, what Elon was talking about is something that would basically filter out viruses, bacteria. Like, not only would you get this amazing Tesla HVAC system, which is super quiet and efficient, and if Elon and Tesla do something, I feel like efficiency is going to be like, I mean, technology with HVACs, in my opinion, hasn't changed in like 20, 30 years. So I would love to see what they would do with something like that. I think just about every Tesla fan or Tesla owner would probably go pick that up immediately.
And for anybody who's like, oh, well, Tesla is an HVAC company, this, that, and the other, here's what's going to make Tesla's HVAC better. Is unlike anybody who makes normal HVAC systems that really doesn't care that much substantially about how much energy it costs you, Tesla does, because every additional watt of energy used by the HVAC system reduces the range of the vehicle. So they are interested in making these things as energy efficient as possible, because a more efficient HVAC system means the car can go more miles before it runs out of power. So Tesla is definitely uniquely positioned to make a super efficient HVAC when they have all the financial incentives to do so. Some of the other players, to be honest, don't.
So let's finish this episode by talking about the drama that went on. I think even before, like last night, Elon, when I woke up, I saw a bunch of tweets. Elon, very controversial tweets.
When I happened real time, I was awake and I tweeted back because like the way they were flowing out, literally my tweet back that like my response went viral, which was, "Hey, have you been hacked?" It didn't seem real because like I had a flurry of tweets and one of them was like in all caps. And what was it? What did it say?
I don't remember what the tweet said, but Elon reiterated, and I quote, he said, "Give people back their goddamn freedom." Like Elon was very passionate, but and speaking of the shelter in place and all that, he's like, "Hey, you're violating U.S. citizens' constitutional rights and all this, right? By like kind of like imprisoning them in their own house." But I know this is like we're talking about something super controversial, but let me back it up.
I'll read the tweets. He said, "Give people their freedom back. Bravo, Texas," because Texas is reopening businesses starting Friday. Now, there is restrictions. There's maximum capacity. There's social distance has to be maintained. And the final tweet was, "Free America now."
Yeah. This is the way I'm interpreting that. Like Elon, I think it's hard for all of us to kind of really relate to where he's coming from. This dude is in charge of multiple companies. I don't know how many, like, what is it, 70, 80,000 people that somehow report
almost 50,000 at Tesla, probably across everything. It's close to 80, 90, 100,000. Yeah.
Yeah. So I really see this as like, he's probably frustrated because he sees his employees hurting, right? Because they were forced to furlough some people, like a bunch of people, people taking pay cuts. I mean, like, I'm assuming Elon is coming from that perspective. I don't think he's just like this. Elon is an engineer. He's not disregarding the data and all that kind of stuff. But I mean, from the very beginning, this is like adding on to the controversial tweet that he tweeted several weeks ago, and kind of like when illness 19 kind of started picking up in the U.S. He was saying the panicking about this thing is ridiculous, right?
And he got attacked for saying don't panic, which was nonsense because like the worst thing you can do in any crisis is panic. Because as soon as you give into panic, you have given up control. And the worst thing you can do over yourself is give up control. So like the attack that he got for saying don't panic, they're idiots. Anybody who said to him saying don't panic, "Oh, all these people has died. Why would you panic? A nuclear bomb could go off 5 miles away." Panicking is still not the right response. Because if you panic, you're not going to get to your bomb shelter. You're going to sit there and freak out and die. So no, don't panic.
But we'll see how. I mean, this drama is still unfolding. I'm sure there'll be more articles written because the call just ended. But man, it was definitely a little bit of a drama filled, very positive from a financial standpoint. I love what I heard. Elon definitely mixed in some Elon drama in there, which is always good to keep people on their toes. But as you can see, I've got the sun is rising. I'm on Mars right now, so I'm pretty close to like calling it good here. But do you have any parting words, Eli?
I just want to say that wasn't what talked about, and they really didn't give any specific guidance about Q2 or any projections about Q3 in the future. And that's honestly kind of typical for companies right now. But it means we're kind of in limbo for the next quarter, waiting to find out what happens and what demand looks like. And I would be honest and say Tesla doesn't even know what their demand's going to look like because practically no company does. So I'm going to be sitting on the sidelines and watching and waiting to see what comes out of Q2 because, like, that's the real question, right? This is going to be Q2. We'll have a full quarter of impact from COVID, 6 weeks of the factory close. And like, I know people get excited every time Tesla stock goes high. And then like, you know, they're always about, oh, the Tesla shorts are getting burned. And by the way, screw the shorts. They deserve to get burned. And by the way, I have nothing against shorting a stock. I've shorted many different stocks that I believed in because I've never shorted Tesla, by the way. And there's times that I've wanted to, but I won't because I'm a fan. Like I've shorted companies that I believed in because their stock price was just out of touch with what their valuation should have been. And I made money on those calls. However, in the case of Tesla, there's a huge movement of people who shorted Tesla and trying to undermine and lie about the company. And so I know people are celebrating right now because the stock is high. I think realistically, the stock's going to come back down again. It's going to go up. And in long term, it's not going to matter for the success of the company. but the Tesla is going to
Agreed.
still experience volatility because it's such an emotional play. It's such an amazing story. It's going to be several years before Tesla becomes an Apple and the stock just does this infinite like this. They've got a
Mhm.
ways to go. They've got a lot more cash to produce. They've got a lot more of the world to dominate, but it's going to be an interesting couple quarters. It's going to be fun to watch. And I'm excited to participate both as an owner, as a Tesla Geek member, and an investor. And I hope that the Tesla annual shareholders meeting still happens, and that's something we can attend in person. So I'm waiting to see when that
Oh,
happens
definitely.
because me and Ann Warbeck are definitely going to be there for that this year.
Definitely. Well, thank you guys. And I hope you guys enjoyed. This was an exciting earnings call. Um, well, I guess we'll wait for Q2 earnings. I don't think it'll be quite as good as this one.
Yeah, and I just want to say, guys, thank you so much for watching this truly raw, unedited version of the Tesla Geek Show. And if you're watching or listening to this, let us know what you think. This is the first time we've ever done an episode after an earnings call, literally 15 minutes after it ends. Normally, we take our time to process things, read the street, and then we come in with a more broader opinion. This is the first time we've given our feelings immediate and raw. So we'd love to know what you guys think.
Cool. We'll see you guys. Thank you so much.
Peace.